I'm Tamara Thomas, editor-in-chief of UrbanHealthToday.com, part of the DocWire family of medical news sites, and I want to thank you for tuning in to Urban Health Weekly. Our goal each week is to keep you informed of the latest in health and medical news right from today's headlines. It's time to empower yourself with open conversations about your medical care with news that matters to you. So are you ready? Let's get started. Happy New Year! Welcome to Urban Health Weekly. I'm back with Jackie and Lou. I'm not going to call you guys friends since Lou had an issue with me calling him my very good friend last week. I'm just going to say with my,
that's right.
I guess my co-host, we'll just say that.
Right, I'm holding out for a new contract.
I don't want to get into Me Too trouble calling him.
Oh my God.
So I know it's ridiculous, but I gotta, he got an issue with it. So
that's right.
We are where we are. So
called HR and everything.
Oh, so I'm respecting his wishes, and I will no longer refer to you guys as my friends.
Oh, all right. Well, Happy New Year, all.
Happy New Year to you too.
Happy New Year.
What'd you guys do to celebrate? I know what I was doing. Quarantining
over here as well. Tested positive. How delightful.
Me too. Everyone tested positive in my household.
Yeah.
What about you, Lou?
Quarantining as well, but everybody around me had it, and for whatever reason, all my tests came back negative, which is almost a scientific impossibility. As I was hugging people that had it, and all sorts.
Oh my gosh!
Well, you said you had aches and pains too. You felt
I had one day of aches and pains, but that's the day it was supposed to snow, and I don't know if it was sympathy.
Oh my God! You know, he's totally backtracking now. He's trying to back out of the. He's trying to back out of the cabal.
I want to corona shame you guys, which is a topic.
You can't corona shame me.
No, we took charge. I went and all I had was like a little bit of a headache, and I only tested because there was a possibility I was going to be around New Year's around my parents. And I wanted to make sure, and lo and behold, I took that bulk test. That's what we ordered. The state of New Jersey paid for it. So that I really appreciated. They sent it to your house, and you know how I feel about saliva. So that part was gross.
Yes.
They give you a thing and you put your saliva in this thing, and I felt
so
so
they
bad.
Mailed it to you. I just want to be clear because I have to tell you the nonsense they're doing here in New York. So they mailed it to you and allowed you.
Yes, the way they do it is you have to get on Zoom, and then they have a person who monitors while you spit this thing. And I was just mortified. I go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Because, that's my trigger. And she just checks, you have to show you show your ID and blah, blah, blah. And then they walk you through it. And then you fill up this little tube, and then you attach it, and then you seal it. It goes back into the thing, and you mail it. And then it goes straight to this lab.
Oh, that's what I was doing that. I forgot the lab that I was doing it from here. I was paying like $50 a pop because I didn't want to have to go and stand online and stuff like that.
Okay, was it a lab also? It goes to a lab?
Yeah. So
okay, that's probably pretty similar. Yeah.
Send it FedEx. We do the whole saliva thing, then we send it back FedEx, and then like a day and a half later, you get your results back.
Yeah, and it's a PCR. It's supposed to be pretty, pretty accurate. So that came back positive, and I really didn't have any symptoms other than. And so that one, and I was making a bet with my son. I was like, I bet I have it. He goes, I bet you don't. You wear your mask everywhere. And I go, well,
not at home.
He's around not at home, and he's around his unvaccinated family from the other side. So I was just like, anyway, he had to get. I took him as soon as I got the results. I took him to his pediatrician, and they did the old, up the nose business. So we're going to wait on those. That seems to take longer. That one's a little backed up. That will be like next week. We'll know the results. But he had shortness of breath because he went running. Back to how briefly he went back to the house to go get some fishing gear. And all of a sudden he went from a full run to just like a walk. And I was like, wow. Yeah. So
check the oximeter.
I did. I've got that thing. I love that thing. And the oximeter is fine. It's all good. And I don't, but I think that qualifies as shortness of breath, I think. Yeah. And I mean, granted, I was thinking at the time, I was like, we need to get more physically fit. We're not getting enough exercise in, but maybe it was,
it could be a little of both.
Probably.
Well, Well, I have to tell you how I came to find out about my status. So, so my daughter was exposed last week, and I tested myself, and I was negative. And then, I had an appointment. She was supposed to get her flu shot with her pediatrician because I didn't want to go stand on some line with her.
Right.
So we went to the pediatrician. Pediatrician did the test, and
was it the nasal swab?
It was the nasal swab, right? But it was like an antigen test. It wasn't like, So she did the test. Then she came back 10 minutes. She showed me, and then she immediately asked us to leave her office.
Wow.
Yeah, she was like, "Please leave immediately." And then she said, "Jesus, protect me."
Oh man!
Get out! Voice in the Amityville Horror.
I mean, she was like, "Please leave immediately through this door." And I didn't ask her any questions or anything because I had to stay calm because somebody had to stay calm because she was freaking out. And then after we left, she didn't feel very good about that situation. She did not like how she was made to feel, and I don't blame her. And I'm wondering if I should have a conversation with the pediatrician about it afterwards when the dust settles. I don't know. I'm on the fence about that. But the other crazy thing that's happening here in New York is they're not giving us the tests. People have to stand in line.
That test is $90 if you were to buy it from the site. So New Jersey, luckily, it says what state you're from, and then it automatically doesn't charge you when you're on that particular site. Otherwise, it would be $90. So we're
not being charged. But you have to stand on line like idiots.
Yeah. So yes.
And somebody you go ahead and tell.
I'll tell my story.
Yeah.
So I had been around so many people that were infected. It was like I felt a scientific impossibility to have this thing. So then what happened is I took a test and I did the self-test and it came back negative. But I'm there like, my curiosity here is costing me $50 and up every time. There's no way. It's costing me for free in New York City. So I went on the websites and I found a place that was allegedly giving it for free.
And by the way, they're doing it by like, you have to be in certain areas type thing. That nonsense.
Oh, okay. Like by your zip code?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I picked an early, I did it early in the day.
And they're treating it like some stupid pop-up, like it's like, some
well, yeah, that's what I want to
pop-up.
talk about.
Yeah.
Then I get there, and I was pretty much like getting there as they were getting started, but there was already 34 people ahead of me.
Wow.
It's done out of so they have a truck. If you remember way back in the seedy days of like Times Square or whatever, if you can remember.
Yes, I remember that.
Those vans that used to sell those bootleg VCRs, and really it was the empty box. And you had these like really shady characters. So that's kind of what it felt like. They were doing it like out of the back of a truck. And then they had this little tent that, people use for like barbecues that you get from Home Depot. So I had all of that.
Those white tents?
Actually, a blue. It was a blue pop-up with feet. But, a heavy wind would have blown it away. And they had these open up tables or whatever. They might as well have been playing 3-card Monty there. So I get to this thing. Okay, so 34 people are ahead of me. So I stood in line in the rain for an hour and a half. Now, if I cough today, I'm telling you, it's not Omicron. It's I got a cold from stupid testing.
What doesn't matter?
Yeah, but we all have it anyway. We're all friends. We just give it to each other back and forth. So anyway, so what happened here was, I get to there, and then a person just gives me like an at-home test, and the test said at home because I brought it. Gives me an at-home test, and then they sit down and watch me test.
In the cold.
Oh.
In the cold. And like this whole thing was ludicrous. So then you got to wait 20 minutes for the results and whatever. And I was negative again, thank God. And so, whether I had it or not is undefined because I did wait 5 days between tests. But the thing is, then I asked them, like, well, why can't people just get these tests and give them out you're making everybody wait in the rain, and they were kind of being apologetic, but that's not their orders, that they have to do it so that they don't undercount the amount of cases. So in 2 hours, they managed to test 34 people. If they would have given these tests out, in 2 hours, they could have given out 1,000 tests. Now,
then is there no oversight that you're actually doing the test? It's rapid? Is that it? Because it's an antigen, it's not a PCR. Is that what's going on?
It's a rapid test. You give your information. They just want to have counts, I guess. Of
okay.
It was a team of 7 people. Otherwise, I know people in Long Island that you just drive up to an area, they give them to you. They even give them to you in a little bag, 4 to a person. And you just drive away. You drive up, you get them, you drive away. I mean, to me, that's a lot more
efficient.
Right. And the 4 tests cover 8 people or 8 tests. So,
well, actually, it's supposed to be, you do 1 test and then you test yourself again 24 to 36 hours later. But I mean, you can divvy it up among more people.
So those ones give you an instant result within 20 minutes?
15 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, because as you say, every time you're going to get tested at home, you could say, okay, they're an at-home test, but if you're blowing $90, or
that's unaffordable for people.
It's unaffordable, and what does that? If you don't have a lot of money and you're poor or whatever, that you're really going to think twice about that. So I do not like the New York City. I just got to go on record. I do not like the New York City strategy. I think we could do a lot better, and we should also make these accessible to all. And do them out of areas, do them out of distribution points that you're used to doing them, like a pharmacy, or at least stand outside a pharmacy or something. If you don't want to give it to the pharmacy to give out, just stand outside the pharmacy or something and have it happen. But I really left a bad taste in my mouth.
I mean, you would think the way they were doing this is like some damn sneaker pop-up event. Like, if you roll up here, you'll get Nikes for $25. Not that will ever happen, but you know what I'm saying. Like they act like it's like this big event, and it's it's not like they're at these places every day, and you can make a plan and go there. It's literally like pop-up stuff where if you don't get there, it's just not happening. It's terrible. It's terrible. I would never stand online and do that, but I mean, thankfully, I have the luxury not to do that. So in any event, after she got her test result, and the pediatrician ran us out of her office, didn't even so much as give us any instructions or say, call me or anything like that. Just kind of hanging. I know I have to rethink whether we want to continue.
Yeah.
But I had, rapid tests at home. So I decided to test myself. And because there's no way when you have a little one, there's no way you can isolate. It's just not possible. They need hugs, they need kisses, you give them their food, wearing a mask at home. It's one thing to wear a mask at school. Home is a whole other thing. You're their primary caregiver. It's just not possible. It's not feasible. So I tested myself and yes, it was a weak positive, but it was a positive nonetheless.
Okay.
So
have you had any symptoms that
just a mild headache, but that's about it.
That's what I had, a mild headache.
A mild headache, and then the next, I would say a day, maybe 36 hours later, it was gone.
Fatigue? Did you have fatigue?
Just fatigue, yeah. That's it.
Yeah, but not even that terrible is what I had.
No, yeah. I mean, because I kind of always fall asleep at my desk anyway.
Those vaccines.
Yeah, I would say thank goodness for the booster.
I agree. I'm so glad I have that booster.
Because just imagine how much worse our symptoms would have been had we not been vaccinated. I remember I got hit like a ton of bricks last year when there was no vaccine, when everything shut down. Oh my God, it was terrible. My eye was bloody. I had such a horrible headache that I thought I was going to have a stroke.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was really, really bad. I didn't even know that I lost my sense of smell until I got my sense of smell back.
I don't feel like I lost my sense of smell.
Probably not this time around, but last year, it was,
sure.
I mean, I got, the only thing I didn't have was I didn't have any chest involvement. I didn't have any coughing or sore throat or anything like that. It was all upper respiratory and all in my head.
Ooh.
So this mild headache this year was nada. It was nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's probably what's playing out all over the Northeast right now, and it's going to be spreading across the country. And I don't know.
Wildfire.
Yeah, exactly. That's the term that I keep using to describe it. It's like a wildfire. It's absolutely bananas. And who knows how, you get it exactly. Like this person tests all the time that we were exposed to all the time. There's no reason.
Yeah.
Person's last test was a negative test. And then I get a text the next day, like, I'm so sorry to tell you I tested positive. I'm like, oh no. Yeah. When you try everything in your power to be safe, and then it ends up being right in your backyard.
Yeah. Our pediatrician told me I got to wear a mask around my little guy and that I should crack the windows and all that stuff. But I don't, I think it's too late, but I'm doing it anyway. So the house is freezing, and I'm pretty sure the dog has it too, because the dog is extra clingy.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep the dogs away from me too, because I don't want them to get it.
Right. I think it's too late for the dog and the cats at my house. So in any case, it's really hard. And so I was upstairs and my little guy was downstairs, and I kept saying, hey, how you doing over there? And he was like, I'm good. And meanwhile, he was hitting the freezer and eating all kinds of. I go downstairs the next day and I see all the detritus of multiple, fudge pops he was getting into. Video gaming and eating fudge pops, and I was like, oh boy, he was not fully supervised. That's just like,
wow. Well, thankfully she's been eating a lot of fresh stuff. She's been craving strawberries and her apples and stuff like that, and she has a strong appetite. She doesn't even want her usual pizza, believe it or not.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And when I asked her, why she didn't want her pizza, she's like, I just want this stupid coronavirus to be over with.
Oh, I'm very impressed.
Yeah. She's like,
I'm very impressed.
Stupid coronavirus to be over with. I just want it gone. So no pizza until I'm better.
Wow. That's impressive. That's some self-control right there.
Yeah. So that's her stance.
Unfortunately, I'm eating Chinese food. And I'll eat it.
Yeah, I was not doing whole food plant-based yesterday. I just went right into a rotisserie chicken. Like I didn't mess around.
Comfort food, man. All right. Okay, I hear you. Well, rotisserie is pretty good if you're gonna have something. At least it's not like fried chicken or something.
No, rotisserie, and I made a chicken soup out of it, and I ate that. So.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah,
sounds yummy.
So on a related subject, and getting into things that no one knows what the answer is really to, the CDC has now changed times of quarantine and when.
Yes, they changed it from 10 days to 5 days,
10
and
days
then
to 5 days.
So your first 5
7,
days.
yeah.
So your first 5 days you quarantine at home, and then
are we going the 5 days from when you get the positive?
5 days from the day you test positive. Yes.
Okay.
And then at days 6 through 10, you have to mask up. So you can go back to your regular activities, but you must be masked.
Okay.
So it's still technically a 10-day, except that, only 5 of them are in isolation.
It's not as hard at 10 days. Okay.
Right. So listen to this. New York City ER doctor breaks down how Omicron affects the boosted, vaxxed, and unvaccinated.
Now this I want to know. I'm making like little quiet bets in my mind. I'm very interested in hearing that.
Yeah, so this is Dr. Craig Spencer. He basically says every patient I've seen with COVID that's had a third booster dose has had mild symptoms. By mild, I mean mostly sore throat, lots of sore throat, also some fatigue, but maybe some muscle pain, no difficulty breathing, no shortness of breath, all a little uncomfortable, but fine. And then from there, it goes downhill. Then he says most patients I've seen that had 2 doses still had mild symptoms, but more than those who had received the third dose. More fatigue, more fever, more coughing, a little more miserable overall, but no shortness of breath, no difficulty breathing, mostly fine. For those who just had the 1 shot of the J&J vaccine and never took a booster, the situation isn't as good.
Ugh.
So those patients he's seen that had 1 J&J and had COVID were worse overall. They felt horrible, fever for a few days or more, weak, tired, shortness of breath, and coughing, but no one needed hospitalization. No one needed oxygen. Not great, but not life-threatening.
Okay.
And then there are the unvaccinated who, by all data, are being hospitalized at a rate 15 times or more than the vaccinated. And almost every single patient that he's taking care of, he says, that needed to be admitted for COVID has been unvaccinated. Everyone with profound shortness of breath, everyone whose oxygen dropped when they walked, everyone needing oxygen to breathe regularly. So his recommendations are pretty simple. Get vaccinated if you haven't, and get a second dose if something like you've used the J&J shot, get the booster. It's available to you, I think, after 2 months or something like that. Yeah. And they're showing that the J&J, if you have 2 shots of the J&J, efficacy goes up to 85%. So that's good news. Yeah. So he says, so now, no matter your political affiliation or thoughts on masks or where you live in this country, as an ER doctor, you trust with your life if you rolled on into my emergency room at 3 a.m. I promise you that you'd rather face the oncoming Omicron wave vaccinated, is what he said.
Oh, right.
So, I mean, we're living proof of it, right? Mild.
Yeah, that's playing out in our household because my little guy between 12 and 15 is not boosted yet, but he's a little bit more than I have, and I'm boosted. And I heard they're going to start doing the booster for 12 to 15-year-olds, but I don't know the exact details.
Yeah, it's up for recommendation. The clinical trials have come in. But you want to hear something crazy.
What's that?
Israel and now parts of the UK are doing the world's biggest clinical trial because they're starting to vaccinate their people for the 4th dose.
Oh, yeah.
They're not playing.
Yeah, they're not playing.
So we'll be able to take the data from there to see what the results are without having to go through a full clinical trial as to the dose. And 3rd doses on kids are just moving in the same order in which they were moving. So, for those with children, after 6 months, you should be able to give your child a vaccine. It isn't approved yet, but it's looking that way.
It's looking like it's in the okay. Well, that's good. And you know what? And I'm gonna get on my soapbox and I'm gonna say this one thing about the boosters. This government sat and played around and listening to the WHO and all their nonsense about we don't need a 3rd vaccination because other countries need it and all of that. And that may well have been the case, but we're in this pickle now because we were being reverse elitist, okay? We were being...
I don't know about that. You think that's the case?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if people have been encouraged to get their booster sooner, we wouldn't have the record numbers of people sick now if we had gotten our boosters sooner.
Do you think that's what the WHO was saying? Is that how you interpret
that we don't
it?
Need booster because other countries need to get their first shot? Yes, that's exactly.
I was interpreting it. This is how I interpreted it.
Yeah.
I interpreted it like you're getting a second life vest while everybody around you is drowning. And that's how I was interpreting that it was a case where we weren't prioritizing getting more out there. That's how I interpret it. We're so busy focusing on getting boosted that we're not even making sure that the poor countries are getting vaccinated. And that might be why, excuse me, Omicron, why we have these variants and that it spread like wildfire. Right. Is that how you don't see it that way at all?
Both things can be true. It doesn't have to be.
It didn't have to be either or. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. That's what I think I'm trying to say.
So busy
you don't need it. You don't need it. They need it more than you do. And that was not the case. That should have never been the case.
We're saying that's a false equivalency.
Right.
But that's not what everybody.
That's what I mean by the reverse.
I get it.
Well, you're a rich country. You can do without it. No, actually, we can't because look at where we are now. We may be a rich country, but we're very poor on health relative to other countries. Okay.
All right.
So, I agree that other countries should absolutely have access to the vaccine. I'm not arguing that, but their stance was you don't need a third vaccine, America. You don't need a third vaccine, UK. You don't need a third vaccine, European Union. You've got to get out of the way and give it to these other countries. How dare you? How dare you?
Do you think that they were also saying that you need to provide, or you need to order these corporations to make sure they're making enough and not just provide it to wealthy nations? You didn't think that there was, like he was saying a little bit, that there was an obligation to provide for poor people and poor countries as well?
Well, but they were providing for other countries. It's not like they weren't providing for other countries.
Well,
what they wanted was them to give up their
prioritize.
Yeah.
They wanted them to give up their patents and let them, give up their intellectual property, which I don't necessarily agree with. And B, they were saying that you don't need it; they need it first. You've already had your 2 shots. Now it's their turn.
I kind of see it like there was it was about giving up the patents.
Go ahead.
Yeah, here's my thing. I like the analogy about the life vest and what do you do with it, but okay, so I'm a strong swimmer and I got a life vest. Maybe I should give it to somebody else. But I've got to be able to hand it off to somebody else, put it on them. It's more involved than just like, hey,
Okay.
So with the vaccine, it's not about getting.
And then if a current is carrying you under, it's carrying everyone under.
Yeah, it's not about getting. Well, there's a few things here to unravel. So I got about 2 or 3 points here.
Yes.
The first one is that it's not just about getting that vaccine to these areas. It's about creating distribution networks where people go. You're getting the people vaccinated to areas where they trust. Sometimes these underserved countries don't even have a proper road system. The villages are all over the place. It has to be refrigerated. There has to be controls from point A to point B. There have to be people that give it out and give it out to the right people and give it out in the right way. So there's a whole distribution network here at play. It's not just the vaccine, because believe it or not, we got plenty of that vaccine. We just don't have, and I hate to use this term, the supply network. Secondly, what the WHO did not take into consideration is that the United States and some of the European countries have some of the oldest populations on Earth. Our average age is way past some of the average ages in other countries. Yeah. Therefore, our death rate, and because of obesity and some conditions that exist,
and comorbidities,
and comorbidities.
Okay.
Death rate hasn't been stellar. In fact, our death rate is like number 20 and 25. That you would think for a country that had all the vaccines and all that.
Yes, we also have a sicker population. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Older, much older.
Sicker and older.
And this is one where there's almost a direct correlation between age and death rate. So, I get it, but the death rate here is a little bit higher. The fact that person A in the United States is getting the vaccine does not preclude person B from somewhere else from getting it.
Yes.
That would be the false equivalency that Tamara was saying.
Yes, 2 things can be true.
What's creating a backlog is the infrastructure that's set up in some of these not so developed countries. So those infrastructures are keeping people from getting the information that they need, getting proper information. God knows America itself, we have more news stations than whatever, and we get it wrong.
So Tamara, you're saying it could be a case where they're giving up their patents, and then Lou is saying, and they give up their patents and it doesn't even get to the people. There's no infrastructure for it. Yada, yada. It gets into that whole.
And they don't even necessarily.
And you won't benefit from it.
You give up your patent, but this is not something you can just do in somebody's garage. There's a very strict manufacturing protocol here. You can kill a lot of people with a bad batch. So you have to be very, very careful, and it has to be refrigerated to be effective. There's a lot of protocols that have to be followed.
All right. That's making a lot of sense, what you guys are saying. Yeah.
I just don't like the WHO, making this this kind of, judgment call.
Moralistic judgment call.
This moralistic, Thank you. Moralistic judgment call and saying, hey, you guys, you big guys, you get out of the way because it's their turn. That's not your call to make. Right. That's not your call to make.
And if the WHO was actually intervening in these countries and setting up distribution networks and helping them, I'd be the first one giving them $50 or whatever a good contribution is, because that's well deserved and that's money well spent. But right now, the way it's working is like,
And then because of who stepped in and weighed in on this and took this moral stance, the CDC followed suit and dragged their feet on approving of the third shot for people. And this is why we are where we are now. And this could have been avoided if our government had stepped in sooner and said, hey, okay, it's been 3 months, 6 months, it's time to get boosted, people. Even the uptake on the boosters, was it like 1 in 7 people at this point that got
1 in 7 for the kids? Not sure about the boosters.
No, I think it's 1 in 7. No, there's no boosters approved for children.
We still don't even
it's
have
1 in 7 people getting the third, the booster.
How long do you have to wait in New York to get the booster? Like in New Jersey, they were asking it to be 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, it's a 6 months.
But the definition of fully vaccinated is still not boosted.
Yeah,
so that's
it's still one if it's J&J.
So you can go into a restaurant here and say, "Oh, I'm fully vaccinated," when you're not boosted. And I've tried to do it on the app as late as last week.
Yes, me too.
And you cannot put the booster.
You can't put the booster in. It's still looking for your second. It's ridiculous.
It still looks for your second shot, and you're fully vaccinated rather than boosted. So, put that one, New York, in your pipe and smoke. I'm mad at everybody. Down with the world. Anyway.
Well, let's take a break and we'll come right back.
Okay.
Frenchman to Oak Street, Tremaine, Gentilly, and the CBD. V102.3 WHIV FM. The vibe of the city for human rights and social justice. WHIV 102.3 FM.
All right, and we're back. So we kind of we went. I got on my soapbox in the last segment, and I had to speak some venom about this whole who. Anyway, so let's get to the topic at hand, which are the medical advances that we missed while we were keeping our eye on COVID-19, and there are some really good ones. So COVID-19 has been all-consuming. For nearly 2 years, the world has been focused on the race for vaccines, the pressures on providers, the best testing protocols, and simply staying safe. COVID-19 also showed some research efforts, but scientists still managed to seek solutions for many other pressing concerns: Alzheimer's disease, maternal mortality, and prostate cancer among them, that have bedeviled patients for decades. So here are 8 medical advances that we may not have noticed while we were busy paying attention to COVID. Number 1, rolling MRIs into hospital rooms. There's a machine that's called a swoop MRI, which was created with input from Yale Medicine in New Haven, Connecticut. And it has received FDA approval and is already at work in several US hospitals. It's a portable MRI, it's a weaker magnet. And what's great about it is that you can roll it from room to room. So if you have a frail patient or a patient that can't be moved, you can bring the swoop into their room. It's about the size of a small refrigerator. And you can do the MRI right there without having to move the patient. The other great thing about the swoop is it's around $100,000, not $1 million for like the regular MRI machines with the stronger magnets that you have to take everything off, and you have to make sure you don't have any metal in your body, et cetera. Otherwise it'll just rip through you, which is great, which means smaller hospital systems can scrape together and afford it. So that's one really cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then
and that's going to save lives.
That's
so.
the absolutely
save lives. And also, I had a family member who had to be recently had a cerebral event, and we had to wait days in order to get for the MRI because it was so backed up. And this is the kind of thing where a portable one would have at least made for a quicker clinical decision.
Yeah.
And you still end up having to get the big MRI, but you would have known faster, and you wouldn't necessarily have to wait 3 days in line just to, get some sort of clarity for them to make a decision.
That's right.
Right. That's really helpful.
That's a good one. So what's number 2?
Number 2, zapping prostate cancer.
Oh, yeah.
So a promising new approach that succeeded at leveling prostate cancer is called Lutetium 177 PSMA-617. It basically drives radiation directly into a cancer cell while sparing the healthy tissue around it. The method uses a compound called PSMA-617 to hone in on a protein found almost exclusively in prostate cancer cells. Then a radioactive particle carried by the compound blasts the cancer cells wherever they are. So basically, it's like a cancer-seeking missile.
Right.
Yeah,
and this is for metastatic cancer. So there's two types of prostate cancer, one that hasn't metastasized. But I believe that this one is being used for the metastatic ones where the cells have kind of wandered off in the rest of your body. So it seeks them out anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not only.
That's impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's for the more advanced forms of the disease and for patients whose condition is deteriorated despite standard treatments. Right. So this feels very hopeful.
Yes, good news.
Yeah, prostate cancer now with the advanced blood test is usually caught at an early stage, at stage 1. But there still are instances where it's stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. So this is more for a stage 3 and a stage 4, where it's not as curable as a stage 1 or a stage 2. So this is
or for cancers that has not responded to traditional treatment.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 3, solving sickle cell disease. In research conducted at Boston Children's Hospital, scientists used a virus to switch off the gene that triggers cell sickling. The patients subsequently produced healthy red blood cells, and nearly all were able to discontinue the blood transfusion sickle cell disease often requires. The study that they did followed 6 patients for a median of 18 months and found that the treatment completely halted the disease more severe symptoms. Next up is a trial of 25 patients. Meanwhile, sickle cell disease researchers elsewhere are studying other gene editing techniques. All these approaches look promising, and we need a lot more research to determine if one or another is better, they say. This is very exciting news.
It's very exciting.
Oh, gosh. Have you ever met anybody who was having a crisis? When I worked in the hospital, there was a young girl who was like 21, and she was suffering. I just couldn't believe how painful it was for her. Right. I felt so bad.
Right.
And
they're staying away from opioids on this because then they become addicted.
Well, that's the other problem, is that you're in such pain. A lot of doctors misinterpret that pain as drug-seeking behavior, and it's not. There was a whole New York Times article on this woman who had sickle cell.
And they weren't believing her. Her pain was severe.
Right. And what happened is she was running out of her pills sooner than normal because she just was in just terrible pain. Because basically sickle cell disease is when the blood cells are not round, but they're shaped like crescents, like sickles. And what happens is they get clogged and stuff because they don't move through the blood vessels as easily. So what happens is it deprives the body of oxygen, and it causes tremendous pain as it moves through your body. And so sometimes you run out of your medications, and doctors get very scared because they don't want to be brought up on stringing patients out for opioid abuse, and they don't know what to do. And so they drop the patient because they don't want to risk their license. They don't want to get into that kerfuffle. And patients are just left suffering. They go to emergency rooms and they don't get help because doctors think that it's drug-seeking behavior. They don't realize how painful sickle cell is. And so this is great, this gene editing technology that is safe and effective and is going to end a lot of suffering.
My feeling is, from what I'm seeing and what I know now, of money's being spent, because you always follow the money on these things. Anyway, I do. Whenever there's money being spent,
yes,
serious, yes, I do. Serious research going on. I would say that for once, people are taking this disease seriously, which is a great thing. Number 2, it's being now finally resourced after many, many years of being under-resourced.
So overdue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now I think that we are anywhere from 3 to 5 years from having treatments that actually make a difference in the lives of people that have it, or an outright cure with this gene therapy.
Wow.
Number 4, saving mothers' lives. When a woman's uterus fails to contract after childbirth, tremendous blood loss can ensue, possibly leading to an emergency hysterectomy or even death. In fact, postpartum hemorrhage affects 3 to 10% of all childbirths in the United States and causes more than 1/3 of childbirth-related maternal deaths worldwide. Treatment options include medication that don't always work and inserting a balloon to put pressure on the uterus, much like exerting pressure on a cut. That comes with risk and must remain in place for a day. But providers now have another option. A new vacuum device aids natural post-birth contractions, putting pressure on leaking blood vessels. The FDA-approved device, which is called the Jada Vacuum Uterine Tamponade, which is very logical since it's like what the body is supposed to do. Also, the vacuum is used for less time than the balloon, roughly 2 or 3 hours. For moms, that's a big deal because it makes it easier to breastfeed, to get out of bed and bond with their child. The vacuum controlled bleeding in a median of 3 minutes and successfully treated 94% of participants, according to the study, which was funded by the device's manufacturer, Aledia Health. In comparison, other research put the balloon's effectiveness at 87%, which is still pretty awesome.
Right.
You know, vis-a-vis dying. This is great for a woman with postpartum hemorrhaging. This could be a game changer. This could mean the difference between you walking out of the hospital with your child or your child going home without mom in some instances.
And this is very important for the United States, where our mortality rates, both mother and
deplorable,
child,
yeah, really embarrassing.
Yeah,
you know, it's not in line with how much money we got. That's for sure.
Number 5, a Reborn Anterior Cruciate Ligament, which is the bane of every athlete's
Oh my gosh.
existence, that ACL.
If it isn't the ACL, it's the meniscus, but it's all about the knee.
No, it's all career ending. The most effective repair option has been removing the ruptured ACL, harvesting a graft from the shin or elsewhere, sewing that tissue into the knee, and hoping both surgical sites heal well. But as of December 2020, the FDA approved a simpler, more natural method. It's called Bridge Enhanced ACL Restoration, or BEER for short. They basically stimulate the ACL to heal itself. So the approach involves placing a protein-based sponge prepared with some of the patient's own blood between the torn ACL ends. Then what happens is the blood promotes the connection between the 2 ACL pieces to the sponge and ultimately to each other. So far, the approach has been tested on more than 100 patients. In a May 2020 study, patients and physicians reported that BEER performed as well as the standard repair and without the graft surgery that can cause ongoing pain or weakness at the donor site. Mioc Orthopedics, which has the worldwide exclusive license for the BEER implant, has already begun making it available through orthopedic surgeons in the United States. That's fantastic.
That's pretty exciting.
I like using the body's intelligence to heal itself.
Well, I with my experience with judo martial arts, we had a lot of people with torn ACLs, and I remember that, getting that surgery, it's not like in football where you're at the surgeon the next day. You got to go a couple of months without it. And what they would recommend is a lot of bicycle training, a lot of exercise, believe it or not, on that torn ACL, because it does start healing itself. Now, it's not going to heal itself 100% properly, but, it's a lot better that it's partially healed when you go under the knife than not healed at all. So this is really great.
So what is that supposed to do? It brings inflammation to the area, the bicycling?
The bicycling does a lot of blood flow in the body, and it promotes, believe it or not, some self-healing into the area. Also the bicyclists like me, it'll give you a lot of inflammation anyway. But that blood flow, that extra blood flow, your body starts the process on its own.
Yeah.
But this is one where you do need that little extra boost, and this sounds like a great therapy.
I like it a lot. I like the idea of it. I like using the body to help itself. It's almost homeopathic. Okay, a breakthrough obesity medication. For the first time since 2014, a new obesity medication has hit the market, offering hope to the 78 million Americans who face the many risks of excess weight, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and complications from COVID-19 now, among others. And the new medication, semaglutide, also known as Wegovy, is significantly more powerful than its predecessors, according to research that helped it garner approval from the FDA. They said they've seen 1.5 to 2 times the amount of weight loss compared to other medications. In fact, semaglutide recipients lost nearly 15% of their body weight on average, compared with 2.4% among controls. Semaglutide, an injectable medication, is not entirely new. A synthetic version of a natural hormone that quells appetite. It's already used to treat type 2 diabetes. But the obesity trials paid for by pharmaceutical company Novo Nordisk use a much higher dose. High doses haven't been studied long enough to identify long-term side effects, but the recent research reported mild to moderate gastrointestinal issues that lessened over time. Over 40% of US adults have obesity, and the number who are getting a pharmacologic treatment is under 3%. Part of the challenge is educating primary care providers that providing evidentially based obesity care includes consideration of medication.
I'm always nervous around obesity meds.
I'm uncomfortable with the medication that says keep eating the way you're eating. We'll just give you something to take the fat away.
Well, this doesn't take the fat away. This just doesn't. This keeps you kind of like from raiding the fridge at midnight.
Does it? Because I don't know that I'm hungry when I raid the refrigerator.
That's an excellent point, Jackie. That she's not necessarily when she's raiding the fridge at night. That it's not because she's hungry.
It's not really hunger. It's a craving, but okay. I don't know.
Yeah, because a lot of people overeating, it doesn't have anything to do with hunger. A lot of it has to do with stress. A lot of it has to do with self-soothing. A lot of it has to do with
it's complicated.
With mood eating.
Yes.
If you're upset about something, so there's a lot of factors that go into what's that the editor at large guy from Vogue, what was his name? Andre Leontali. Yeah, he talked a lot about how his struggle with his weight, and a lot of it came from eating a lot of the comfort foods that he associated with his grandma. His grandmother would give him comfort food, and that's what he constantly self-soothed himself with. So I don't know that tamping down the hunger gene. By the way, I'm very uncomfortable with using a hormone to. But that's another thing.
I see that they're already using it for type 2 diabetes. I mean, that's a little bit reassuring, but I still have fear of, remember fen-phen? I'm still afraid of fen-phen.
Oh, yeah.
Fen-phen was more of an amphetamine. I remember fen-phen very well because I kind of worked on the marketing side for that drug, and we had to pull it because it really was, it also made you crazy. But
Lewis is a man of many industries. Go ahead.
It's the same pharmaceutical industry, but every once in a while we get a clinker, a clunker. But if you look at insulins, there's about 20 insulins out there in the marketplace, and doctors try to give you the right one for your type of diabetes, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things that they started finding was that these insulins actually started having an effect on your weight. And then they said, oh, wait a minute, we'll prescribe it for the weight loss. And it did get approval because, the potential benefits are less than the harm. Meaning if you have the harm of obesity and you have the benefits of this drug, the benefit to harm ratio is on the positive side.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know how comfortable I am with that.
But number one, there's a lot of pop-up sites that have come on where you kind of talk to a doctor via Zoom. Not that I have a problem with people talking to doctors via Zoom, but in this particular case, you're not even talking to a U.S. doctor via Zoom. You're getting counseling. There's a whole
industry.
There's a cottage industry possibility here.
But at the end of the day, it's just pill. It's the same thing that you see in the ED side of things and all of that. These are drugs that have very, very small side effects. So they're not killing anybody. So they don't get sued a lot. That said, I think we've got a lot of malnourished people in this country.
That's true.
People that are not nourishing themselves the proper way, or just stocking up on carbohydrates. And I think that the malnourishment does focus around the poor more because, the supermarkets cater to them. the couponing caters to them. The whole hey, here, get all these carbs and you won't be hungry. Yeah, you're not hungry, but you're also not getting nourished. And the more nourishing food has exorbitant prices. If you get the organic stuff, just go to Whole Foods one day and shop, and you better bring $300 just to you come home with a little shopping cart.
Vegetables, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true.
So that's my 2 cents on that. I'm glad it's there, but I'm
glad it's there for people that are at their wits' end, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think people need to be re-educated on. You have to relearn your relationship with food first. So I don't know that injecting. Anyway, I don't want to be preachy about it, but you kind of have to relearn your relationship, like you did. Like you, Jackie, you changed your diet. You started, the fasting. You're getting your exercise now. You're eating
process,
much more natural, foods, less processed. Yeah, I mean, it's relearning that relationship with food. So I don't know that an injection does that, but okay, let's give it a shot and see what happens.
Fair enough.
Next up, the first blood test for Alzheimer's disease.
Wow.
Randall Bateman, MD, a Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis neurologist, is thrilled to have contributed to the first blood test for Alzheimer's disease, which is a devastating condition that affects as many as almost 6 million Americans. Back in 2017, though, as Bateman geared up to share the discovery that would enable the test, he worried about his peers' reaction. After all, scientists were convinced that the blood marker he studied couldn't predict the disease. But the WUSTL method was much more sensitive and direct than prior approaches. The resultant, called Precipity-AD, effectively detects the amyloid plaques that are a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease and has proven as accurate as the previously used tools of a spinal tap or positron emission tomography, a PET scan, which are far more costly and complex. The test, developed by a company called C2N Diagnostics that Bateman co-founded, has been available to physicians since October 2020 when it received approval through a federal lab certification program, and is now awaiting approval from the FDA. Oh man.
Man, I didn't know I had to take a spinal tap for that.
Oh yeah, that's part of the reason why that what is that? The new drug into a lot of barriers, because you've got to have the diagnosis first, and those diagnostics are very expensive and very time consuming. So that's a bit of a barrier. I mean, there's also issues like Jackie, you were talking about.
Like sometimes patients are just not, agreeable to getting it done.
Right, because it's a very painful diagnostic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So a blood test is actually right.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
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 Well, we kind of knew that this was going to happen once these technologies, became available to, I guess I'm going to put air quotes, to treat Alzheimer's. It was inevitable that the diagnostic market would be like raised by that time.
One of the controversies with Alzheimer's is, and one of the reasons why companies are staying away from these drugs, doing these drugs, is that the insurance industry does not always reimburse for a lot of these tests. So you got to be in a really bad stage of it and completely, totally symptomatic beyond help of the drug for the insurance company to agree to give you the test. Yet you got to start the drug off early.
Right.
So it's one of those, it's like a catch-22.
Yeah.
So what's happening is people usually don't get the diagnostics until they have serious Alzheimer's. Usually it's a caretaker that takes you in to just get the diagnosis. And by then the drugs are useless. Whatever was going to happen, it's like waiting for a person to have stage 4 cancer before you can even be treated.
Yes.
So there's a lot of lobbying now being done by AARP to have these diagnostic tests and better and easier diagnostic tests developed and covered by insurance so that these tests can be done. Whether it's a blood test or a psychological test or other tests, if you can pass these tests, then you become eligible for the medication. If that's going to happen, then there's a whole pipeline of drugs that are out there that haven't been approved yet. And they haven't even gone into clinical trials yet, because by the time they give it to you, it's too late.
Yeah.
these drugs have to be given to you at your 60s and 70s before cognitive deterioration significantly happens.
And by the way, slightly unrelated, Aduhelm just dropped their price. So that was another
interesting.
Yeah. So that I think they may have cut their price by half.
Yeah.
I've got to look that up again. But I saw that and I was like, well, it's about damn time because that thing was so expensive.
Yeah, actually, there's an article in the New York Times a couple of days ago on the
really?
and on the insurance.
Yeah, we'll bring that up next time too, because that's interesting. Let's not forget that, Mr. Producer. And finally, ecstasy brings relief from severe post-traumatic stress disorder. MDMA, better known as the illegal drugs ecstasy and Molly that fueled all-night dance raves, have become an unlikely source of treatment for PTSD for combat veterans, first responders, and victims of sexual assault and mass shootings, among others. They experience significant relief from MDMA. In fact, 2 months after treatment, almost 70% of subjects who received MDMA together with talk therapy no longer qualified for a diagnosis of PTSD. Isn't that incredible? The treatment involved 3 8-hour sessions a month apart, during which patients ingested MDMA and processed painful memories and emotions in talk therapy. MDMA releases a powerful supply of serotonin and stimulates hormones associated with emotional bonding. The idea is that it helps patients be open in a way that enables them to connect well with therapists and work through their problems more quickly. I like it. For a long time, this was a bone of contention among veterans and stuff, that they didn't want to use the stuff that the VA, the Veterans Affairs people, were allowing them. So they were going underground and they were doing stuff like ecstasy, doing marijuana and stuff, which was much more beneficial for them than the antipsychotics that they had to take if they wanted to keep their benefits.
Maybe even crazier.
Yeah. So this is fantastic news.
This is interesting. They've been doing intravenous ketamine for a while for depression. Now, I did intravenous ketamine with the doctor's approval for a while for some treatment. I did. And I think it helped me tremendously. So I don't know anything about, I've never done illicit. So I don't know about ecstasy, but I think it's sort of a little bit in the same family. I mean, there seems to be something going on. I find this a really interesting topic.
They're doing a lot of research now on a lot of the psycho, like shrooms and MDMA.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that has been led by the legalization of marijuana. So I am all for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm very happy that there are other means of seeking wellness. I'm all for it. Oh yes.
Well,
absolutely.
And also it's a treatment that's like it's not a chronic treatment. You don't have to take it daily. You go periodically, you're supervised. I find it, very interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is under a controlled therapeutic situation. It's not like you're just sparking it up whenever.
Yeah, you're not going and hopping to a party. It's not like that.
Right, exactly. So this is fantastic. Yeah. And these are the things that we have missed while our eye was on the COVID-19 ball.
I'm crying.
Wow. What a distraction.
Well, it's going to be a great year, and I can't call it next year anymore. This year, 2022.
I know we have to now say 2022.
Yeah, we will probably see the legal.
Happy New Year! This is exciting.
Well,
so we have seen. We're gonna have a weed show.
Well, we already have legalization in New York. Is it legal in New Jersey?
I think it is. I have mixed feelings about that, but that's a different story.
Well, we're going to have to talk about that next time. Yes.
We're wait for something to get legalized. So
I'm curious. It's legal. It is already legal.
No, it's.
But we don't have the dispensary. We don't have dispensaries. Yeah.
You don't have dispensaries?
No, we don't have the dispensaries.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Also, the fact that it's actually grown upstate, not necessarily.
It is?
Well, not in the cities. It's not being grown up here.
And it's not being grown in Columbia and flown in. So that's
right.
Yeah. So it's grown up in the farms. So
at one point I was talking about getting a farm upstate myself so that I could start ground floor.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I'm very serious
about that.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna have the weed show.
Well, that's all the time we have.
All right.
Happy New Year's again, and I can't wait to talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to Urban Health Weekly today. I hope you'll join me and my friends next week so you can stay informed and inspired to take control of your health. See you next time.